You ever find yourself in one of those arguments that just goes nowhere? I mean, you're making your point, they're making theirs, and you both just end up more frustrated than when you started. It's like you're speaking two totally different languages, right? Well, today, we're going to dig into why that happens. We're going to uncover this hidden trap that keeps us all talking in circles, and more importantly, I'm going to show you the key to actually unlocking a real productive conversation.
I mean, it's the big question, isn't it? You see it everywhere. Online, across the dinner table, all over the news. People are so passionate. They have these incredibly strong beliefs. But all that energy, it just seems to fizzle out into gridlock and anger. But what if the reason wasn't that the other side is just, crazy? What if we're all just stuck in the same hidden trap? Okay, take a simple word like freedom. For one person, that means freedom from government getting in their business. But for someone else, it might mean the freedom to have things like healthcare and education, which actually requires more government action. See the problem? They're both using the exact same word, but they're not even having the same conversation. They're just talking right past each other.
And that brings us right here to our first section, the stalemate of modern debate. It's this feeling of being completely and totally stuck, where every single discussion just turns into an emotional shouting match instead of a real exchange of ideas.
It's so easy to paint the other person as the villain, right? To think they're arguing in bad faith, maybe even driven by malice. But what if that's not the real story? More often than not, the real issue, the core problem, is just a deep, fundamental misunderstanding. We're basically fighting these huge battles over words because we never bothered to agree on what those words actually mean.
So let's get into a proper diagnosis. In Section 2, we're looking at the real culprit. The vague, slippery, and super emotionally charged concepts we all use every single day without even giving them a second thought.
Pretty much any big concept can be broken down into 3 layers. First, you've got the broad, general, kind of fuzzy idea of a word. Think justice or fairness. Then, someone comes along and creates a narrow, specific definition with really clear boundaries. And finally, there's how that word gets used day to day in a specific situation. And here's the kicker. Most of our arguments happen because we're jumping between these layers without even knowing it.
And here is a perfect, almost unbelievable example. Just look at the word socialism. In classic Marxist theory, the end game, the whole point, is for the state to eventually just disappear. But in almost every real-world political practice, that same word is used to justify strengthening state power. I mean, these are polar opposites, but they're hiding under the exact same label. Is it any wonder people get confused and angry?
All right, so we've spent enough time on the problem. Let's talk about the solution. And that brings us to Section 3, the power of definition. This is where we learn how to slice right through all that confusion and start having conversations that actually, go somewhere.
So what's the secret weapon here? It's something called an operational definition. Now, I know that sounds super technical, maybe a little boring, but stick with me. It's actually simple and incredibly powerful. All it means is that before you even start debating, you and the other person just agree. You agree on exactly what the keywords mean just for this one conversation.
So how do you actually do that? It's just 2 simple steps. First, you agree on the essential qualities of the thing you're talking about. What absolutely has to be true about it for it to be, it. And second, you define the boundaries. What does this apply to? And this part is just as important, what does it not apply to? If you can get those 2 things clear, you've just built a solid foundation for a real discussion.
Let's go back to that idea of a fair policy. Just by stopping the argument to ask this one question, you completely transform the debate. The second you clarify, wait, are we talking about giving everyone the same starting line, equal opportunity, or are we trying to make sure everyone reaches the same finish line, equal outcomes? The whole conversation changes. You're not yelling about fuzzy feelings anymore. You're actually discussing concrete, specific ideas.
This power of definition, it's really the first tool in a whole new way of thinking. So in our next section, let's go ahead and build out the rest of that political toolkit. This is all about moving from just having opinions to having real analytical skills.
Okay, the first thing we've got to upgrade is how we see the political world. Just slapping a left or right label on everything is honestly a sign of weak analytical ability. It's like trying to measure a whole building with a tiny little ruler. It just flattens out all the interesting and important complexity. A much, much better way is to look at issues on multiple axes. Are we really talking about an economic issue, like taxes and spending? Or is it a cultural issue about social values? Or maybe it's actually about governance and how much power the state should have.
Someone can easily be left on economics but right on culture, and those old, simple labels just fall apart.
So if we put this all together, you start to see three core skills that a truly rational participant in any society needs to have. First, what we'll call conceptual and discourse analysis. That's the skill of spotting when someone is sneakily swapping definitions mid-argument and having the confidence to call for clarity. Second is systemic thinking, looking at issues from all sides, the economic, the social, the ethical. And third is consensus building, learning to focus on the actual facts, not personal attacks, so you can find that little bit of common ground.
All right, so you've got the toolkit, now what do you do with it? That brings us to our final section, how to truly participate. This is where we take these skills and apply them to make a real-world difference.
You know, we tend to think of political participation as just voting every couple of years, or maybe showing up to a protest. But real, effective participation is actually a high-level cognitive activity. It's all about how you think, how you analyze, and how you engage with ideas day in and day out.
Here are 3 really powerful ways to do it. First, you can deepen accountability. Instead of just being for or against a policy, start asking specific, data-driven questions about its real impact, its cost, its goals. Second, engage locally. Take fact-based arguments to your city council hearings or community boards, places where one clear voice can actually have a huge impact. And maybe most important of all, start to reshape public discourse by simply insisting on clear definitions in every single discussion you have.
And really, that's the ultimate goal here. This isn't just about winning your next argument on the internet. It's about making all of our arguments better. The most profound, the most meaningful way you can participate in your society is to help raise the rational level of thinking for everyone.
So I'm going to leave you with a challenge. The next time, and you know it's going to happen, the next time you feel yourself getting dragged into one of those heated arguments, just pause, take a breath, and instead of launching into your opinion, what if you just started with a simple question? Something like, hey, before we get into it, can we just make sure we're on the same page? What do you mean when you say that? Seriously, give it a shot. It might just change everything.